In this video, we will be discussing lubricating and troubleshooting the power pack on your forced air kerosene heaters. Some of the supplies you will need include a small Scotch-Brite pad, a Phillips head screwdriver, a set of feeler gauges with a 6/1000ths blade, a flathead screwdriver, and a can of silicone lubricating spray. First, start by locating your heater on a stable and level surface. Then, with your Phillips head screwdriver, remove the 4 screws that hold the top cover in place. Next, remove the 3 screws that hold the black plastic inlet cover, being careful not to drop anything down into the heater. In the next step, you will want to inspect the spring and ball bearing located behind the pressure adjustment screw. Using a flathead screwdriver, completely remove the screw, being careful not to drop the small spring and ball bearing located behind it. Pictured here is what you will see behind the adjustment screw. Inspect the spring for damage, making sure it is not bent or stretched. It is also possible to sometimes find the ball inside the spring. This can happen when the adjustment screw is screwed down too tightly. If you find this, simply remove the ball bearing from the spring, being careful not to damage it. If no damage is found, reassemble by placing the ball in first, then the spring, then the screw to hold it all in place. We will discuss how to properly adjust the pressure later. Next, remove the aluminum outlet housing. Using a Phillips head screwdriver, remove the 6 screws that hold it in place. Each screw has a washer. When removing the screws, be sure not to drop the washer into the heater. Once all of the screws have been removed, disconnect the air line from the brass fitting on the side of the housing. Using a Scotch-Brite pad or a dry, clean cloth, lightly wipe off the rotor side of the outlet housing. Once clean, inspect the part for excess wear or damage. Next, we will remove the cylinder ring, along with the rotor, vanes, and the rotor drive key. With a Phillips head screwdriver, loosen the 2 screws that hold the ring in place, located at 12 and 6 o'clock. Before completely removing the screws or the cylinder, place one hand under the bottom of the ring to catch the vanes that will fall out of the cylinder. Next, remove the nylon drive key and inspect it for wear. Pictured here is what the profile of the key should look like. It should have 2 flat spots and mirror the shape of the drive shaft. If it is completely round, it has been stripped and needs to be replaced. Using the Scotch-Brite pad or cloth, clean off the back of the motor housing. Once clean, the cylinder can be reinstalled. Put the cylinder ring back in place using the reverse of the removal. Leave some play in the cylinder so that it can be gapped after the rotor has been installed. Next, replace the rotor drive key and place the rotor back onto the shaft. In this video, the rotor has been labeled with the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 to indicate the 4 quadrants of the rotor that should be checked when gapping. There is also a mark at 1130, which is where the 6/1000ths feeler gauge should be centered on once the rotor is in place. With the feeler gauge in place over the first quadrant, press down on the cylinder ring while tightening the 2 cylinder screws. Once those have been tightened down, check for clearance on the other 3 quadrants. Next, install the 4 rotor vanes. Look at the vane and find the shiny side. That is the side that should be facing outward towards the cylinder. When installed, the vane should be flush with the face of the rotor, and when you spin the fan, the vane should easily slide in and out. Next, you can reinstall the aluminum outlet housing. Reattach the housing in the reverse of the removal. Don't forget to attach the air line before placing the plate over the rotor. Leave the screws loose so they can be tightened in a star pattern. When tightening the first 2 screws, push the housing up and to the left towards the 1130 position. This will position the ports correctly and allow for proper airflow. Once the first 2 screws are tight, you can let go of the housing and tighten the other screws using the star pattern. Next, reinstall the plastic inlet housing in the reverse of the install, being careful not to over-tighten and crack the plastic. Next, you can lubricate the rotors and vanes. For this process, pull back the foam filter, plug the unit in and turn it on. Spray the silicone lubricant in the housing behind the filter while the unit is running. Be sure to keep hands and tools away from the fan. Also, if there is fuel in the heater, make sure you are doing this in a ventilated area. You can now reinstall the top cover and return the heater to service once you have adjusted the pressure for your specific unit. If your unit is equipped with a pressure gauge, there are pressure settings in the specifications section of the manual that came with the heater. If your unit does not have a pressure gauge, you can easily set the pressure by looking at the front of the heater. With fuel in the heater and in a well-ventilated area, turn the unit on and let it run until you see the cone begin to get red. An ideal burn is a cone that is predominantly reddish-orange with very little to no flames licking out around the outside edges of the cone, like the image you see on your screen. If your cone is dark, turn the screw to the right to increase the pressure. If your cone has excess flames, turn it to the left to reduce the pressure. If you have any questions or need service parts, please contact us at 800-251-0001. You can also email our technical service manager, Bill, at the email on your screen. Thank you.